Hey everyone, welcome back to Crime Weekly News. I'm Derek Levasseur.
And I'm Stephanie Harlow.
And on Crime Weekly News, if you're not familiar with it, what we do here is we cover cases that are not necessarily something we could cover over multiple episodes, which is what we normally do. This is mainly crimes in the headlines, things that are being discussed during the week. And we want to talk to you about those things, so that's where we do it here. And this week is no different. We're going to be talking about Patricia Kopta. She's an individual who went missing over 30 years ago. She was legally declared dead, and she's recently been found in Puerto Rico. Seems like there's a lot of wrinkles to this story. Apparently you guys are fascinated by it. I think it's interesting to cover because in a lot of the cases we talk about on Crime Weekly, when we have missing persons, we actually just did one with Jennifer Kessie. They can be declared legally dead. And unfortunately, the likelihood is it's probably true. But this right here might give a little hope because that's not always the case. That's why you always want to leave a little bit of margin there where maybe, just maybe, it's an outlier. And in this case, this is one of them. So when we talk about these missing persons cases, yes, we're talking with some degree of certainty, but there's always a chance. And that's why I think these stories are fascinating to talk about because you just never know. So we're going to get right into it. But before we do, just a couple quick things, because a lot of the Crime Weekly people watch this as well. You can see I'm wearing the Criminal Coffee merch right now. Getting a lot of emails in the last week or so about previous orders. Real quick, we did mention it was a pre-order. We didn't want to have a ton of overstock to not get into all the business details. We didn't know what you were going to like and what you weren't going to like. So we, instead of just buying a bunch of stuff and having it sit there forever, we did a pre-order. We now know what you guys like and what you don't like. So we've ordered all the blanks. That's how they come. They're in production right now. Stephanie and I were together in Rhode Island this week. We physically saw that the items were in production. They were being made while we were there. So J&R Marketing, which is the company that's designing the products and manufacturing them, is now sending emails back to you. If you've inquired, 1 to 2 weeks, it should be shipped out to you. So if you ordered in the first batch, 1 to 2 weeks, you should have your items. If you don't, by all means, email us or J&R Marketing. But that's the time frame. And going forward, there will be no delay. We now know what you guys like. We have plenty of stock. So once we fill the pre-orders, everything will be kicked out almost immediately. So you'll have no wait. That was really that. And then the other thing that I'm getting a few emails about, which I think is important, it's something, again, we're learning. J&R Marketing is fulfilling our orders. So the Criminal Coffee website, if you notice when you click on merch, if you look in the hyperlink, it actually brings you to a different website. So we're getting some emails because you're trying to add both merchandise and coffee to the same cart. And it's very easy to miss. So it's not your fault. It's 2 different websites. So obviously you can't do that. We're going to fix that. We're working on it. It comes down to logistics. We had a company build our Criminal Coffee website. J&R is fulfilling the orders, so they have their own website. It was done so well that it looks like the same website, but we are working on it. So I apologize for the inconvenience. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. I didn't think it was going to be as big of a deal as it has become. So you learn and you grow, and we'll fix it. That's all I really had. But we appreciate all the support, everyone who's purchased items, and we'll as we get closer, we'll keep fine tuning things, and hopefully it's a seamless process as we go forward.
Yeah, the merch is really great. I only have my one sweatshirt right now because I had them ship everything to me from J&R, and I had to wash it when I got back from Rhode Island. So it's on the drying hook right now because I don't even want to risk it shrinking.
What one sweatshirt is that, Stephanie?
It's not yours. I put yours. I took the
Stephanie,
medium.
Rob, there was an actual crime in Rhode Island. She committed a theft.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I would even call it an armed robbery.
I wasn't armed, so.
You used force. That's considered armed. You
Really?
Physically used force and took it from me, and that would be considered a felony.
Force is subjective, I think.
I was intimidated. I was in fear of my life. Therefore.
Shut up. So it's the same sweatshirt as I have. What is it, like the cardinal red Criminal Coffee hoodie?
It was something. It wasn't cardinal
heathered
red.
Or heathered maroon or something
like that. Jason from J&R told us. You had asked him. I can't remember. But it almost looks like a burgundy, right?
Yeah, it's so nice. It's so soft. It's the perfect. And then, I have the medium, and then Derek had a large, and I put that on, and I liked that too. So I like the medium, but like certain days, you like things a little bit more baggy. So I stole his sweatshirt and put it in the box that they're going to ship to me.
Yep. And by the way, they're making your items. Mm-hmm. Poor guy comes out who's making the hats. He's embroidering the hats. Mm-hmm. Stephanie starts going through the box and loves a hat. So Steals that too. We had a klepto in the JNR marketing. So if your stuff takes a little longer to get to you, it's because Stephanie was stealing it all.
He actually was like, hey, do you want this? Because we were going to go get coffee. And the guy who was embroidering it, he was standing outside of your truck door. He was like, do you want a hat for the road? Now, I don't know, was he going to give it to me permanently? Once it was in my hands and on my head, it was mine. I love that freaking hat. It's the gray one with the gold thread. Oh my God.
Sick.
I wore it today to the gym. And
It almost looks gold, kind of, right?
the thread looks gold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But it's like a good gold.
it's a great gold. It's like a warm, bronzy kind of like Spartan gold. You know, it's great. And the one of the flight attendants on the way back from Rhode Island, she kept asking me about it, and then she was like, "Well, where can I find it? Do you have a card? You know, so I can order your coffee?" And I was like, "I don't have a card." I was like, "But as soon as we land and we have Wi-Fi, like I'll pull up the website for you." So I did that, and it was cool. So shout out to that awesome flight attendant, American Airlines. Yeah.
Yep. No, it was a great trip. We covered a lot. We went to Criminal Coffee. We tightened some things up, and we have this project coming out, which you will all be aware of, hopefully in a week or so. It's been a secret project we've been working on for
What is it?
a few months, long time.
What is the secret project?
The whole reason you came down to Rhode Island, Stephanie. What did we do?
Oh,
all week?
yeah. Yeah. Because it's not a secret to me, so
Yeah.
I was confused.
I would hope not.
Yeah. Not a secret to me.
So we figured that out. It's pretty cool. We're really excited about it. But that was really it. I know some of you, there's going to be a couple people putting the timestamp when we actually start talking about the case, and then that's fine. I'll give you a pass
Video
this week.
starts at 17:34. You're welcome.
You're welcome. But for those of you, a lot of our supporters who watch both, that's why I wanted to address it. It's easy to address it here. We are responding to every email, but maybe this will cause some emails to subside for at least a week or two. If you don't have your merch in a couple weeks, then I would reach out, and it's me. I'm getting every email, and then I'm forwarding it to JNR. So, or you can contact them directly.
I still don't have my merch, so.
It's going to be shipped out as well. I mean, you didn't want to check any luggage in. You're cheap.
When's that going
to? I mean, could have just checked something in and brought it all home. But no, that's it. We'll get into it. Patricia Kopta. Stephanie has all the facts.
I'm glad we're talking about this today because we're also recording the Crime Weekly episode tonight, and it's the West Memphis 3, and it's a really tough case. Three little boys murdered brutally. So I'm really glad we're talking about this because although I wouldn't say that this is like a super happy ending, it's better than Patricia Kopta being murdered and buried or like thrown in a swamp somewhere, nobody ever finding out what happened to her. I will say that. So, and I got so many messages of people wanting, me to talk about this. So I said, why don't we just cover it on Crime Weekly News? And here we are. So Patricia Kopta, she was originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and she was last seen in the summer of 1992 when she was 52 years old. Now, for the most part, she had a pretty normal life. She was a straight A student in high school. She graduated from high school. She worked in finance at a Pittsburgh plate glass company. She loved ballroom dancing. She would attend ballroom dancing events every week. She'd eventually go on to be a dancing instructor. And she had, odd jobs here and there. She worked as an elevator operator at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. She and her husband, Bob, they had no children, but they had a good marriage. Everything was normal. She went to church every Sunday. But suddenly her husband, Bob, noticed that her zest for religion kind of turned obsessive. Bob said, quote, "Something must have happened. Somebody got to her because she started on this whole the world is going to end thing. She lost her job and started hanging around downtown. When there was a baseball game going on, when a concert was going on, she'd be telling everybody to go home because the world was going to end in 3 days." End quote. Patricia actually became known as the Sparrow around downtown Pittsburgh because she was considered to be like, a street preacher, but in a way she just claimed that she was hearing the Virgin Mary's voice and basically proclaiming that the apocalypse was going to happen at any minute. But she was like really tiny and she had this erratic way of walking. And so she got nicknamed the Sparrow. And everybody sort of just got used to seeing her outside of like concerts and baseball games. And she was basically like a figure in the community. And in 1991 or 1992, she was actually mugged by a group of girls who stole her wedding and engagement rings. And, she ended up getting arrested around that time because she was acting erratically. and a mental health professional diagnosed her with having delusions of grandeur and also signs of early onset schizophrenia. So I guess one day her husband Bob came home and Patricia just wasn't there anymore. They were married for 20 years. He knew she was kind of like losing her grip on reality, and the police believed that she'd left town of her own free will because she had a history of mental health issues, and she'd mentioned to some people that she was going to leave because she was afraid that she was going to be, placed in a facility, basically a mental health facility. And they actually wondered they wondered if she'd gone to Puerto Rico because her husband said she loved Puerto Rico. One of her sisters, Gloria, she actually had a twin sister who died 6 years ago, but her younger sister, Gloria, said that Patricia used to go to Puerto Rico all the time before she got married with her friends, and she loved the ocean, the beach, the warm sunshine. And her husband, Bob, said that Patricia always wanted to go to Puerto Rico because she wanted to live in a warm and tropical environment. And they actually looked for her in Puerto Rico, which is crazy because there was an investigation, right? It does make you think of some of these cases where we talk about people going missing and then we're like, oh, they were never found again. It's been 20 years. It's been 15 years. It's been 40 years. They were never found again. That must mean that they're dead. What else could be the case here? But I mean, this could be the case that she just picked up and went to Puerto Rico and nobody could find her there. Bob said he even put like ads in the paper in Puerto Rico trying to find her, but they couldn't. However, last year, police were contacted by an agent from Interpol as well as a social worker from Puerto Rico, and they said they believed that Patricia was living there in an adult care home. They said she'd come into their care in 1999 when she was found in need, living on the streets, and it's believed that in the years between 1992, which is when she, vanished from Pennsylvania, and 1999, when they found her, Patricia basically wandered around the northern towns of Puerto Rico, kind of doing the same thing, preaching. And she wouldn't tell them who she was at first. She said simply that she was on a European cruise ship, and the cruise ship dropped her off on the beach and then left her. And obviously they could never, check this story out and find it to be true. But basically, sadly, as she got older, because at this point she's 83 years old, as she got older, she was diagnosed with dementia, and she sort of started talking about things from her past and her old life and mentioning things which allowed the people who were taking care of her to put two and two together. And so then the people in Puerto Rico called the Pittsburgh police and they did a DNA test. But even her sister said, I didn't need the DNA test. As soon as I saw the picture of her, I knew that it was my sister. But they did the DNA test with her sister and they found out that this is Patricia Kopta living in Puerto Rico, I guess, safe and sound, after all. And the police and her family believe she was dead. She was declared dead 25 years ago legally. And her husband, Bob, said, it's a relief knowing that she's not lying in a ditch somewhere. And he wanted to bring her home and reunite her with her family. But I guess she wants to stay where she is. She's happy there. She feels comfortable there. She knows the people. I wonder if she learned to speak Spanish just from living there for so long. I would be interested to know.
Yeah, she's been there for 30 years. I would think she'd picked up a word or two. Well, I guess we don't know how long she's been in Puerto Rico, but I would assume it's
since
been for the majority.
1999. Well, they think she went right there.
Right away.
Yeah.
And so if she went right away, I'm sure she picked up a thing or two. No, this story is fascinating for the reasons that I had said at the top of the show. Obviously, it seems like there's a mental health issue here, so it's a little different. But I will say that there are missing persons that are still active today where the individual is still alive, maybe has a condition, and they're homeless somewhere. And our homeless population is so big, it's and there's no system in place where oh, here's who's homeless right now, and here's where they're staying. So once they end up in one of those locations, it's very easy to get lost, and it's very difficult for even law enforcement to find them. There's no paper trail. They're not usually using a credit card, so there's really no way to either digitally or physically find them. You would have to go from area to area, to tent, just hoping that maybe you would identify them. And even then, unless you really know what they look like, they might not even be going by their own name, or they might not even remember it. So it's it's literally a needle in a haystack. So I can promise you this isn't the only case like this where there's people who are actively missing in NCIC and are still alive and relatively well, somewhere homeless right now. And And the strange thing is sometimes that is what they prefer in a lot of cases. Like they that's the life they want to live. This case, as you were talking about it, not completely similar, but I had an interesting situation in Central Falls when I was I believe I was a patrolman. I don't know if I was in uniform. I don't know if I was a patrolman or a sergeant, but either way, it doesn't really matter. So we get a call for a male individual on the street in the middle of the summer drinking from the water hose in the back of someone's yard. And it was not the best street. I won't say the name of the street, but not the best street. A lot of crime on the street. And the person they were describing was this guy in like a collared shirt with khakis on in his like 60s or 70s. And he looked lost. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't fit that area. So we went over there. We get there, older gentleman. His car's parked in the street. He's coherent. He's talking well, but he doesn't remember where he's from. So he looked like someone was from one of the surrounding towns, right? There's some more affluent towns where we're like, oh, he's got to be like 5 minutes away from where he was supposed to get. He clearly has some type of dementia. Let's just bring him to the station. He can't stay out here. Let's, where's your phone at? And he's like, oh, it's not charged right now. So I'm like, give me your phone. We go to the station. All right, we're in the station. And the reason that I remember this case is because this was not something that happened often where I worked. This wasn't a common thing. And so we get his phone charged and I'm going through his phone and I see a couple numbers that he had dialed recently, a couple female numbers. So I'm like, all right, I'll start there. It was a few days before that day, but I'm like, I'll start there. So I'm thinking I'm going to call and someone's going to be like, yeah, he just went to the store and he never came back. We were looking for him. Call the girl. First number I call. Hey, how you doing? Is this Kristen? Yeah, this is Kristen. Hey, Kristen, so-and-so, Officer Lavasser from Central Falls Police. I have a George here and he's having a little trouble getting home. And there was just silence. She's like, what did you just say? And I'm like, George, he's here. He doesn't really remember much, but I have his phone and I'm just trying to get him home. She starts bawling. Oh my God, everybody come over here. They found him. I'm like, what the hell is going on right now? She calms down. She stops crying. He had been missing for over a week. Damn. And he's from New York, which in relation to where I am is about a 4-hour drive. He's from the suburbs in New York. They thought he was dead. He drove he went out for like food or something, a snack, and just got on 95 and drove all the way to Rhode Island and was just living on the streets. That's why he was drinking from the water hose. He had no money left over. His cell phone was dead. He didn't know how to get home. And because of the dementia, he didn't think to ask someone. He didn't know the numbers. He didn't even remember that he had a daughter. As soon as he got on the phone with her, it triggered it and he remembered. Oh, hey, Kristen, I love you. I miss you. I got lost. It was the best, one of the highlights of my career is because we don't get a lot of the good stories like that. They drove down immediately. They were there within like 4 or 5 hours. And them being reunited, it was, again, not something you get to experience a lot as a cop. And it was the best feeling in the world. But man, how that story changed so fast. And we were sitting there, me and my best friend, Pat Rogan, shout out Pat. And we're like, wow, this job is weird, man. It's so weird. And George was just like, hey, nice meeting you guys. See you later. It was a good story. And I think it's important to have these stories once in a while because we cover a lot of doom and gloom. And unfortunately, that's just the profession we're in. But these stories do exist. And so I think it says two things. One, never lose hope. But also, if you ever, unfortunately, are in a situation like this, understand that although unlikely, and everyone around you might be saying, you need to let go or whatever. Yeah, you need to move on. But stories like this should reinstill the fact that you never give up. You always keep pushing forward because although it's not often, you could be the anomaly. You might be the person that's in that small group of people that have a happy ending. So although this story, like you said, it's a little weird, it does give hope for people out there who may have lost someone who's still out there and they're driving on every day. I think hearing stories like this might empower them a little bit more and might motivate them to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and it definitely felt that she didn't want to be found. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you said, different story.
Yeah, and I mean, that could have something to do with her schizophrenia, or it could be, half and half. I think there was a point where it wasn't she didn't remember who she was, it's that she just didn't want to go back there. She didn't feel understood. She probably legitimately thought that the world was ending and she felt attacked. And her husband said, he received one letter from her. after she left. And I only found that in one article because this is a new, thing. It's just emerging. So I found in one article, it was like a hometown paper from the town they live in. And it said he had received one letter from her and she was saying in this letter, like, people are after me. And he was like, but, what do you think at that point? Because she always thought people were after her. So at that point, do you think people are actually after her and that's where she is and they've got her? Or do you think, she just thinks people are after her? So it's a very difficult situation. And he never remarried. I mean, they were together 20 years, married 20 years. Yeah. And then, she's gone for 30. He never gets remarried. And it's just like, at least now he knows that she wasn't harmed, she wasn't suffering, she wasn't hurt. But it's got to be very tough. I mean, dementia's it's the most terrifying thing that I could think of. I don't like it. Just please, Derek, please take me out. I don't want to live like that, man. I don't want to live like that, not recognizing people I love, like, except for you.
Same, sister. Same.
Just be like, who the hell are you? Give me your hoodie. So
like,
yeah,
I don't know you. Like, I don't know you.
I like that hoodie.
No, right. I mean, it's I'm glad we covered it. Again, maybe a little bit more obscure to some of you guys, but it is something. I like a nice mixture in there. We always cover negative stuff, and it can be a lot for everybody. You guys, us as well. And yeah, the story's a little weird, but I do like, because it does, even as an investigator, it motivates you because you just never know. One more call, one more site visit, one more theory that you explore, one more lead that you check out could get the ball rolling. You just never know. So glad she's been located. Glad she's okay. I hope that the family can find some peace in this, knowing that, like you said, she lived a good life and she seemed like she was happy where she was. I'm sure there's something in that where all the thoughts that ran through their head of what could have happened to her, even if she initially left on her own, who found her, who took advantage of her. It doesn't seem like that was the case. So glad we covered it. Any stories, way down in the comments below if you have an interesting story like this, because I do think that power of positivity, maybe hearing from others that maybe this isn't the only case like this. There's a lot of Georges out there. That's the guy that we found. And so maybe you guys out there have an interesting story that you want to share. Way down in the comments below. Anything else before we go? Because now we got to cover Crime Weekly.
Yeah, we have to cover Crime Weekly, but I think I'm good. I mean, I'm happy she's okay. And I just feel sad. Like, her sister, Gloria, said she tried to talk to her on the phone, but she didn't know who she was. But she's still going to go and visit her. But of course, it's just so sad. Basically your sister is lost. Like, she doesn't recognize you, and it's sad. But she's not dead, and she's alive. And, there always may be that glimmer of recognition. If her sister spends enough time with her, there may be a glimmer of recognition. There's hope. And I needed a hopeful story today. So I'm glad we had it.
Absolutely, guys. If you like what you're hearing and you want to be up to date on Crime Weekly news, because it does usually come out on Wednesdays, but sometimes it's early in the morning, sometimes it's in the afternoon. If you want to get it right away, make sure you like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Crime Weekly news is YouTube only. We may eventually go to audio, but right now we're keeping it exclusive to YouTube. So if you want to watch this episode, you got to be on this channel. We will see you guys on Friday. Everyone stay safe out there.
Bye.